Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 171 of WordPress Weekly for Wednesday, November 19th, 2014. I'm your host, Jeff Chandler, joined by Marcus Couch. Marcus?
Hello, Jeff. How are you, my man?
As we do these intros, I'm always catching myself thinking Friday when I say Wednesday, so it still hasn't sunk in yet.
Well, at least we got the time change right. We're not going an hour early or late.
Yes, at least we've gone that far. Pretty stoked. We have a guest on the show tonight that we've been trying to book now for the past, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, but due to illness, he hasn't been able to make it. But he's here tonight, so
Yes.
looking forward to talking with him to find out what's going on with his business. But before we get to that part of the show, first of all, Marcus, we put out a call to action last week, and I guess we could do it again.
Okay.
Ended up looking at iTunes. We have a total of 10 or 11 ratings. All are 5 stars except for one. Somebody gave us 1 star, and I'm trying to figure out who it is. I've got a little wanted poster available for whoever did that. But I mean, honest, if that was their honest review, then that's fine. And we also had 2 reviews. So the call to action is working, and we'll put it out there again. If you have some time available, please stop by iTunes and submit a review about WordPress Weekly and give it a rating. It's very simple, doesn't take up too much of your time, and we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the higher the review count and the more favorable that we're rated, the further up the rankings will be when somebody types WordPress into the iTunes store. So we greatly appreciate any participation as far as iTunes reviews.
Yes, and you would be helping me take down Medeiros. Yes.
Yes, Matt is titled himself.
Yes.
I was listening to WPcast.fm today, and Matt was billed as the greatest WordPress podcaster in the universe.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
He denied it on Twitter, but we know better.
Yes, we do. So let's see. First topic we want to talk about today is that WordPress 4.1 Beta 1 has been released. It's now available for testing. With Beta 2 right around the corner, of course, in WordPress 4.1, there's a couple things that they really want you to focus in on and test. One of them is the new default theme, 2015. There's also the new distraction-free writing mode for the editor, which is turned on by default, and that's to garner feedback, and so people discover it immediately instead of having to look for it. There's still no decision that I've read on whether or not that's going to be turned on by default in the actual release. We'll keep tabs on that, but I have a feeling it won't.
Yeah, I don't want to get the client calls with that one.
Yes, the pitch for it.
WordPress broke.
Yeah, so there's also the ability to automatically install new language packs right from the general settings screen. And what's really cool about this is you just select from the screen, and this is after installation. So if you want to switch languages for the heck of it, just from within WordPress after you've already installed it, there's a drop-down menu that you can access and change WordPress languages right from the back end. So that's pretty convenient. And there's a new inline formatting toolbar for images embedded into posts. That's something I'm going to test and have a report on for next week because I use the visual editor a lot, so anything that can help me manipulate or edit images right in the visual editor, perhaps with this toolbar, would be very much appreciated. And of course,
that's got to be one of the most underreported features of the new editor is that inline image manipulation capability.
Yeah, so I'll test it out and report back next week. And of course, there's your slew of development features as well. So Beta 2, if you want to get easy access to the betas, make it as easy as possible. There's a beta tester plugin available that will automatically download the beta versions of WordPress, even the bleeding edge versions if you want to venture out on the edge, be a little adventurous. But the beta tester plugin is the easiest way to install and test beta versions of WordPress, and then use the appropriate forums, the alpha beta feedback forum, on the WordPress.org support forums to report bugs and give feedback. That's monitored during this part of the development phase of WordPress.
Yeah. It's
And
awesome. I can't wait to play around with it even further. I didn't get to play with the 2015 theme yet. I'd like to get my annual 5 minutes of playing with the default theme before I delete it. Every year.
oh boy, yes, give it at least 5 minutes. Yes, we're working the sound effects into the show better and better each week.
Very nice.
So let's see. We have Sidekick has unfortunately been delayed. Or actually, I should say Sidekick has delayed the release of Composer. Two different things there. Sidekick is the name of the company. Composer is the name of the plugin. And Composer is, I consider Composer to be the Camtasia of WordPress. And what it enables you to do is create these interactive, really cool walkthroughs. So it's going to be sort of a really great tool for plugin developers, even theme authors to use in order to walk customers, clients, or new users through their particular plugin or theme. And essentially, the reason for it being delayed is that just a little bit of everything is just not ready for prime time. Now, Ben Fox, the co-founder of Sidekick, originally announced that they would release it during WordCamp Toronto in 2014, which was just this past weekend, but that's come to pass. That didn't happen. And just turns out that the architecture, the new version of the player, and the billing system, probably most importantly there, and the account center is just not up to par. They're not really fluid in talking to each other just yet. So instead of releasing everything as is and probably giving people a bad experience, they're going to hold off for a little while, make sure everything is tighten the nuts and bolts down, make sure everything's talking to each other properly so that everybody has a great experience, and they'll release it when it's done. And although it's disappointing news, I have to hand it to them. A lot of people are actually happy to see this type of, I guess, transparency in terms of, well, if something's not ready, this is the way to go about it. Just say, hey, look, we're not ready, we're not putting it out there, and this is why. And it seems like a lot of people have responded well to that type of transparency.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, who wants to eat a half-cooked pancake, right? I mean, you gotta wait till both sides are brown.
Yuck, half-cooked pancake. Then it's just mush.
I usually say that kind of logic for after the show, but I figured I'd drop that bomb on you right now.
So I just wanted to ask you this one question. This brought up something interesting where in terms of software development, there's some who say just ship it. Ship whatever you got, because perfection there's no such thing as software perfection, and so you release and iterate often. But then there's the other side that says, well, what if I ship something that's truly not ready and people have a bad experience and that's their first impression of the software? It's going to be incredibly difficult to change the minds of those people to say, hey, look, okay, we've changed, we fixed all those things, now give it a shot. So there's this kind of unique balance here, and I wonder, Marcus, I don't know if you've ever released a WordPress product before, but I wonder where that balance is. How do people figure out between it being just good enough to where you can ship and iterate on it versus don't ship it at all because it's just not ready?
Well, when it becomes a minimum viable product, and it sounds like they're not even to that level yet. So if it's not even functional, even if it doesn't have all the add-on features and things, if it's still not ready from a minimally viable product standpoint, then they've got nothing. They've got just a pile of code that barely works. And that's not, you don't build a business on that. You build a beta on that. And that sounds like where they're keeping it right now until it's absolutely ready.
Exactly. And I've seen a couple of people in the comments of the article, for example, Modem Looper says, things done well take time. And a couple other people have talked about what they do in terms of when they release a product. And I saw a couple of people mentioning the acronym MVP. So that must be what it means. Say that again.
Which one?
What MVP means? Something viable product, you said.
Oh, minimal viable product.
Okay, and explain again what that means.
Well, that means you have to have a certain criteria that's sellable before you can actually bring it to market. So if you get it to function on a base level to where, let's just take a plugin, for example, a gallery plugin. If I'm going to release Jeff's Magic Gallery plugin, I want to make sure that it's an actual gallery, right? And not just some images that when I click on them, they do nothing. So you've got to have function there, not just form. It can't just have a layout that does nothing. So in that case, Jeff's Magic Gallery plugin is not minimally ready for market. So
I,
we
s-
have to get it to that point.
I see. So if I would create a roadmap, and even though I'd want to do all these things, I would say, well, we have to have at least this set, and it has to be working correctly, this set of features, and it has to work correctly in order for us to start operating the business on top of it. So instead of piling everything on at once, we can get it this far, and if it's working great, then we can release and iterate on top of that. But until then, it's beta mode.
Yeah, and exactly. Especially if they've got issues with the player, if they've got issues with maybe payment gates or something like that, or whatever the other bugs happen to be. Uh, those are pretty critical components of this
Hmm.
process. So I would say that just let them finish cooking up whatever batch that they're working on right now, and then we'll all have our own taste of it soon enough.
And I think it'll be worth the wait based on everything I know and what we've seen. So,
Yeah,
what do
I'm looking forward to using it. So when clients click in specific sections for help, I'll go, "Do you know how much it's going to cost if you screw this part up right here?
you
It's going to be insane. You're looking at
exactly.
$800 minimum. All right, here's your training."
So, WP e-commerce. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's only the granddaddy of all WordPress e-commerce plugins. It has a new home. So if you visit WPEcommerce.org, you'll find the new home, the new URL for the WP e-commerce plugin and project. Now, previously, before this change, it was getshopped.org, and I always found that confusing because there's another e-commerce plugin for WordPress that's called Shop with two P's. So I never really understood the mind share of thinking that getshop.org was representative of WP e-commerce. I always thought of shopped because of the word association there. So this has been a long time coming, and it's a fantastic change. I think and it's really just a culmination, the pinnacle of a number of improvements that the plugin has gone through over the years. And I have a featured article that includes some great quotes from Dan Millward, founder of WP e-commerce. And it's fantastic looking back at WP e-commerce. It's 9 years old. Next year, it'll be a 10-year-old plugin, which is one of the oldest plugins in WordPress. And I would have to say, back when I got involved with WordPress, WP e-commerce was free, always has been free, and it was one of the few, if not maybe only, e-commerce solutions back in the day. And just to put this in perspective, WordPress version 1.5. I mean, we're talking 2005 here, so this is WordPress version 1.5, and custom post types, taxonomies, and many of the hooks and filters that developers rely on today just simply didn't exist. So they had to do a lot of things in WP e-commerce that maybe are look over the following years were frowned upon. So I mean, WP e-commerce ended up with this reputation of being buggy, poorly coded, and they've done a lot of work with some really great developers and even some outside developers, including from their competition, Pippin Williamson of Easy Digital Downloads. He's also been helping out and contributing to the project to help it improve. And I think it's reached a point now where if anybody has written off WP e-commerce, I think you should give it a second, give it another chance. Take a look at it, look at the improvements that have been done. There's a lot more on the way, and just really great job that Dan Millward and team have been doing over there, just sticking it out, improving the software, and trying to get rid of all that legacy code and bringing it up to today's WordPress coding standards. Just great work to the team over there.
Yeah, I use that plugin for one particular client that does a lot of in-person events, and people buy tickets to it. So I use WP eCommerce in conjunction with, I think it's called the Event Manager Pro or something like that, Event Pro. It does a really nice job. I mean, those two handshake together quite nicely. So I love the interface. I'm looking forward to their 10th anniversary as a plugin, and also some of the new contributions and additions that the plugin's going to have.
Yeah, and speaking of the future, a few things they're going to be working on is they're going to implement a theme engine for WE-commerce based on the work John James Jacoby put into bbPress and BuddyPress. They're also going to work on some new object-oriented APIs and integration with the upcoming REST API or WP API in WordPress, among some other things. And they're also going to do some improvements for the WP e-commerce marketplace ecosystem for developers. So overall, I think they've reached a point now where they can be loud and proud of the software instead of quiet and refactoring all of their code. I'm looking forward to it because there's a lot of talk. Easy Digital Downloads is right up there. Shop, iThemes Exchange, of course. WooCommerce is just coming out of nowhere, and they're the market leader right now in terms of WordPress and e-commerce. So we'll see what happens within the next year or two in terms of a renewed interest or adoption to WP e-commerce.
And it's interesting, since you bring up WooCommerce, that all of the add-ons and integrations and things like that, those come into play when you're developing an e-commerce plugin, because there are literally hundreds and hundreds of different variants that you have to develop for, whether that be payment gateways or even how the product is going out. Is it being shipped? Is it digital? Is it recurring? Is it a ticket? Is it an appointment? What is it? And one of those things has its own unique set of requirements from a technical standpoint. So it will be interesting to see if WP eCommerce can also adopt with other add-on plugins to coincide with it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. Absolutely.
Great point. So Marcus, why don't you go ahead and introduce us to our guest this evening?
I'm happy to. For more than 25 years, Shawn Hesketh enjoyed a successful career as a freelance designer, creating logos, print materials, websites, and marketing strategies that helped his clients connect effectively with their audience. In 2008, he created WP101.com, which has become one of the most popular WordPress tutorial sites in the world. Since then, his video tutorials have been viewed more than 750,000 times, throwing your commas at me, helping tens of thousands of people learn how to use WordPress to build their own website or blog. Welcome to the show, Shawn Hesketh.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear. It sounds to me like you're doing better.
Man, it is good to be back in the land of the living. I was sick for a full 2 weeks. One of the nastiest head colds I think I've ever had. So yeah, it's great to finally be on. It's great to be back in the land of the living for sure.
Well, welcome to the show. And how did you get involved with WordPress, and how long have you been in business with WP101?
Well, from that amazing intro Marcus gave.
Stumbled a few times, but I got you.
Oh, that was incredible, man. Yeah, so I started freelance designing fresh out of high school in 1988. So I've been, I pivoted from mainly doing print design in those early days to web design in about 1994. Using some of the earliest tools that were available back then, which were pretty rudimentary, compared to what we do today. So, WYSIWYG apps like Adobe PageMill, and then from that, moving on to Adobe Go Live and Dreamweaver, and so, a lot of coding sites from scratch, learning HTML and all that as my clients and projects kind of needed them and kind of grew into that. So, I first discovered WordPress after kicking the tires on, Joomla and Drupal and Expression Engine and a whole bunch of other CMS systems. I think around 2007, and I think then it was at version 2.3 or something like that. And so started using WordPress to design my clients' sites, primarily because we ran into the situation where you would design a site, hand the keys off to the client, and then, back in those days, there wasn't an easy way for them to make changes. So even small revisions, to their website, involved, them getting on the phone, calling you up and trying to make changes and quote estimates and billing for your time and fancy titles like being a webmaster and all that fun stuff. So, WordPress was a godsend because it enabled me to build sites that I could hand the keys off to my clients and then know that they could just, they could edit their own content, update it, make changes as they needed to using just their web browser. So that's how I first got into using WordPress and haven't looked back since.
Now, when you started learning different CMSs and coming up with ways to learn how to code and everything, you didn't start learning and creating Flash intro videos, did you? Because we've had quite a few guests on here that have said when they were getting involved with learning how to code and everything, they started selling Flash templates and HTML templates on TemplateMonster.com.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm laughing hearing you talk about that. I dipped my toe into Flash development. I built a couple of sites that were full Flash. It didn't take long before I realized, that completely defeated the purpose. So yes, it was flashy, and it was obviously, I had, friends of mine that built their core business off of doing Flash development. But I'm happy to say I kind of missed that whole thing. So I was able to stick to, HTML and then CMS, driven sites. So no, thankfully, I didn't build a big part of my core business on Flash.
Jeff, we ought to have a Flash off, like at the next WordCamp.
I don't know. That sounds like that involves removing clothing. I don't want to be removing my clothes in any WordCamp.
All right.
Not unless a safety officer is present.
I don't want you to either, for the record.
I hear it now.
Oh, no. That's a long rim shot. So, awesome. So, describe the path that sort of led you into WordPress training. You learned WordPress, you learned some of the different CMSs, you have a lot of client work, but at one point did you realize, boy, maybe I could train people how to do this and make a living doing it?
Well, that's a classic example of scratching your own itch because after I would design these sites, that almost always necessitated some one-on-one training with my clients. So I would, be in their offices for, 1 to 3 hours teaching them how to use WordPress. And while it was, the easiest to learn out of the available options at the time, it still required a good bit of education. And so I would go into my client's office, provide this personalized, one-on-one training, teaching them the basics of WordPress. After doing that a dozen or so times, I thought, man, this is for the birds. There's got to be an easier way to do this. There was actually an interesting dynamic that would happen because at the end of those training sessions, they would agree that, yes, I think I can do this. It does look pretty simple, but they would comment that, man, you've covered so much information. What happens if I forget, what you showed me here during this hour or two long session? And so that's when the idea to record a series of video screencasts once and then provide that as a resource mainly to my clients. That's where that idea was born. So I created the first WP101 series in 2008. And again, the purpose was primarily for my own clients. But as I started talking to other friends of mine who were doing WordPress development and design, they said, hey, man, I need that for my clients, so set it up as a membership site, and I'll just send my clients your way. And that was when we decided to turn it into a membership site, and that was over 6 years ago.
What better validation to have than for other people to say, I have clients, I'll send them your way.
Right.
Just make the site.
It was a dream scenario. Yeah.
What did you use for your platform when you maybe started the membership site? Has it changed over the years, and what kind of criteria did you look for when you started that?
Yeah, it has changed, hasn't it? When I first launched that site, there were only a handful of WordPress membership plugins really to choose from, probably about half a dozen, and I kind of kicked the tires on most, if not all of them, and found a lot of them to be really bloated, hard to use. So when I originally launched, we launched on Wishlist Member, and it was one of the strongest products at that time. And over the years, it served really well for the first few years, but there was issues with the code being obfuscated. I couldn't really get in and modify it like we needed to as our needs kind of changed and grew. So that was an issue. There were issues with integrating with other payment gateways like Stripe, that came along later, and so I know the guys, and Tracy and Stu became good friends through all of that process. They helped wherever they could, but they just weren't really evolving as quickly as I needed. So I actually migrated the entire site a few years ago to really kind of a proprietary recurring billing system, and it's similar to Recurly, that subscription billing system. That's what powers the back end of it, but a lot of it is, is coded from scratch. And so today, when I get people who ask me, well, what do you recommend for building a membership platform? Whatever you do, don't do what I did, because we are definitely facing some of the challenges now of needing to migrate again. And thankfully today, there are some great choices out there. And so, between the new Rainmaker fully hosted solution to some of the great plugins like MemberPress or even MemberMouse, iThemes Exchange has a membership add-on, and so there are a lot of options today. And so we're kind of carefully looking at those. And to be honest, I'm moving very slowly into this because I would rather not have to do this again in another few years. So
right.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Wow, created a lot of stuff from scratch, so migration may be a pain, huh?
It will be. One of the things they don't tell you early on with doing things like PayPal subscriptions is what it's going to take down the road to, migrate those payments out. PayPal's IPN is basically locked down at the time that the subscription is created. So what that means is when they go to process the recurring payment, they send out an IPN notification out to your site. If you've changed your system, your underlying system that powers your membership site, it may not be listening anymore at those files or that URL or address. And so there has to be some delicate work done, some custom codes to create some scripts to kind of make all of this happen over time. And it'll be a transition period that'll probably take a year or so. That will slowly, when subscriptions come up for renewal, we'll be able to migrate them to a new system. So it's not something that's fun at all, but it is something that now I stress whenever I'm talking to people about how to build a membership site of their own. Man, give this consideration right up front, because it will come back to bite you down the road.
Yeah, that sounds like kind of a niche career for somebody, reprogramming the migration e-commerce connections when you switch over.
I would happily pay for that person's career to get started. I'll be client zero because we're in that need right now. So yeah.
So you've got quite a few videos in your library in terms of what you offer, and they're very high quality. The audio's great. The video quality. What type of equipment, audio video equipment, do you use to record your videos?
Well, I'm a bit of a fanatic about this kind of stuff. I've been in and around audio and video for most of my life as a hobby, and working in churches and other things like that. So, so when I started making screencasts, I started like most people and recorded the first set by simply recording the screen using a piece of software called ScreenFlow, which I just found to be super intuitive. Really, the two biggest contenders in terms of software, in my opinion, are ScreenFlow and Camtasia. Mm-hmm. And they're not, I think, unlike the difference between Adobe products and Macromedia products back in the day, kind of referencing back some of those old design tools we used to use. It really becomes about the one that you're most comfortable using. They both do very similar things, slightly different ways. But I was using ScreenFlow and then just recording the audio. At the time, I used a USB mic called Snowball, the Snowball from Blue Mics, and it was great for that first set. But the first time I went to update the videos, as soon as WordPress released a new version, I realized I was going to have to go in and update all these videos. And in order to do that, I had to come up with some systems and processes that would facilitate that, long term. And now, since that first set, I've re-recorded the entire video series 12 different times.
Wow.
Most every major release of WordPress. There were only a couple of releases that just had minor changes to the back end and didn't really necessitate new videos. So, so yeah, in order to do that, I've kind of developed a whole series, a process really, and then a series of tools that I use. So today, I've stepped up the microphone, the quality of the audio. I think it's one of the most important things in a screencast, and I think it's something that a lot of screencasters get wrong. So I still recommend for folks starting out the Blue Microphones Yeti. That's a great mic. I used it for a couple of the series, and it's great. But today I use a broadcast quality mic. It's the Shure SM7B, and it's powered by a audio converter by Apogee, which makes one of the cleanest audio digital analog digital converters on the market. So that's the audio part of it. And the biggest change to my process is that I started scripting everything. So every single video is deeply and very detailed, scripted in top to bottom, and that enables me down the road to make changes without having to completely, redo everything from scratch. So I use a great tool called PenFlip, which is kind of like GitHub for text documents or for writers. So it's version control, and you can update scripts as you need to and change out lines and roll back changes and things like that. So that's a part of the process.
That's a great tip. That's a great resource.
Neat PenFlip.
I've not heard of that.
So I mean, when you start talking about microphones and line out and clean audio, you lose me on that sort of stuff. But I mean, to Marcus, he's been in the audio, mostly audio, not video. He's getting into video, but mostly the audio part of the industry. So all of that probably made sense to him.
Oh yeah, Shure mics are great products. For years and years I podcasted with a Shure SM58 that I just could absolutely scream into, and it would always come out perfect. And I was doing a heavy metal podcast back then, so screaming was required.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, how many times a year do you update your videos? And you said you've done them 12 times already. I mean, you have to recreate the entire video. You can't just cut things out or add things in. You have to redo the whole thing. It's all one piece, one fluid video, right?
Yeah, it really depends on the nature of the update to WordPress. So, for example, with 4.0, we only had to redo 3 of the videos, those that kind of pertain to new features in the back end. But anytime the default theme changes, so we're about to see 2015 in 4.1, so that changes the entire front end. And since our course is essentially, working with an out-of-the-box default WordPress installation, it's important that we use whatever theme it comes with. And so anytime there's a new theme released, I go ahead and re-record the 20-part WordPress 101 series is the primary focus. Some of the other videos we do about RSS and permalinks and some of those other topics, that's not necessary to update those with every release, but our 20 core videos I do update with just about every major release of WordPress.
Wow, fantastic. And so as WordPress continues to grow, and WordPress training continues to be a business in high demand, just based on my observations, how have you differentiated yourself from other trainers and coaches out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, and like I said, I'm a bit of a fanatic about quality. I believe that those things can differentiate you. For over the years, what I've heard our customers say, our clients, our members, and other developers who are sending their clients to the WP101 videos, it's that the videos are of a high enough quality that they represent even their brand. So if they're white labeling the videos or sending their customers to WP101.com for training, they want to make sure that it's of a comparable quality to the experience that they're working very hard to create for their clients at every level. So, paying attention to all the little details, making sure that you're recording full screen. When you watch our videos, you don't see the toolbar. You don't see notifications popping in and out. We pay careful attention to the size and resolution so that it's, easily viewed on different size monitors, and you're not, squinting to follow a tiny little cursor around somebody's, 1900 pixel wide monitor. All those little tiny details that we've kind of honed over the years since that first series help to differentiate the WP101 videos. But more importantly than that, I would say it's the active listening that we do. All of our members have access to a members-only Q&A forum. And in that forum is where I really think the meat of WP101 happens, because the videos will only take you so far, but you're going to have other questions. Now that I understand the WordPress basics, how do I really categorize my content on my blog? And some of these questions are not going to be best handled in a video. So in our Q&A forum, I can answer those questions and go a little more deeply and help people provide that kind of guidance that they really need, that one-on-one training to fill in those gaps. And I think that's another differentiator. It also has then provided the ability to have their feedback guide our future videos that we're going to create. So when they're asking us, hey, here's what I need to do next, do you have a video series on this? That helps me to be able to shape the product for the future. So that active listening is very important, I would say.
So the video is really just also a conduit for your community that you have internally.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks tell me all the time that that it really was the forum that sold them. That's the reason why they'll continue, as recurring members, is because of that ongoing instruction. Otherwise, once you've watched the WP101 basics, they probably don't change enough to where you would need to have a membership that continues on, but yet most of our members, do stay on, mainly because of that additional support that they'll get at any time, in that Q&A forum. So that really helps.
Like an extra lifeline, or at least a safety net while they're getting to know WordPress.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then that forum is for paying members only. So you have this sort of gated community where they all feel like they're all paying members. They all have seen the same videos. They all have access to you and the content you've created. So it's this sort of really close-knit, gated community where probably everybody feels welcome. They feel at home and probably willing to ask you anything.
Yeah, and that's the atmosphere that I work very hard to create. I mean, in every interaction. So when folks email for support watching the videos, I'm the one responding. When they're asking questions in the Q&A forum, it's me asking, answering their questions, pointing them to resources, connecting them with, and being able to say, hey, I've tried these 3 plugins. Any of these might work for you, but based on what you've told me, I think this one is probably going to work best for you. That's invaluable, and you just can't get that from just watching tutorials on YouTube. So it really does go that extra distance. And as an educator, one of the things that I think video is incredibly powerful for what it does, but we have to recognize that there are some limitations. So while it does great at providing overviews, and being able to even jump out to other websites and show other dynamics or show something in action, these are things you can do uniquely in video. But at the end of the day, as an educator, I want to make sure that I'm actually enabling people to build what they wanted to build in the first place, right? So whether it's a blog or an e-commerce site or whatever it is, were you actually able to get where you wanted to go? Because I think no one enters WP101.com saying, I want to learn WordPress. I think they all have a goal in mind. WordPress is the tool or the vehicle to get there. So that forum and those ongoing conversations are really the best vehicle for me to carefully work with our members and help them to be able to get where they're going, get them from point A to point B.
And you bring up a valid point that I think a lot of developers, and at least site developers, membership sites, things like that out there, they seem to forget that you have to have that one deliverable, that one result, that one thing that customer, as they're turning away from your site and walking past, what's in that bag that they're carrying out the door. You've got to never lose focus of that, and it seems like you've kind of really pinpointed into that one dynamic and run with it for the entire time.
Man, you nailed it. I mean, you're singing my song. Even when I was doing freelance design, what I found after 25, 26 years of freelance design was that I didn't really enjoy just designing, logos, brochures, websites. I really, especially, in the last 5 to 7 years of my business, I realized that it really kind of sucked to do these one-off projects. What I most enjoyed was spending the time up front with a small business owner or a startup and getting to know their vision and what differentiates them and who their audience is and how they're going to communicate with them and what's the message that you're trying to communicate, and often crafting the words and then giving them back to them even in a better way than they gave them to you in the first place. When you get into the trenches with somebody like that and to that extent, then it makes sense to not just work on one simple project, but rather to leverage that same information over the long haul. So even in the freelance design, most of my clients would be clients for 2 to 4 years, and they would come back again and again and again for follow-up pieces, and and we would talk about how well marketing pieces did, and really that kind of value-based billing entered the scene. So all of that was made possible because my deep passion is helping people get from point A to point B, help them to identify what their goals are, and then map out the best path to get there. So that happens to work really well, for WP101 and for our members, and I'm constantly looking for new ways to do that more effectively. But yeah, that's absolutely my passion. At the end of the day, it's not about what I want them to learn or even buy. It's really about whether or not our members are able to get where they want to go and accomplish their goals online, create the kind of life that they want.
Yeah, it's really not about am I going to teach you, it's I'm going to change you. I'm going to change the way you work with WordPress and the way that you interact with your site.
I love that. That's perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Something I find amazing about WP101 is that there are about 1 billion different resources out there, all free, where if you put in the effort, if you know what to do, if you're at the right mindset, you can find, like you said, videos, tutorials on YouTube, any number of WordPress sites that have written tutorials about how to do things, and various other Google searches, even maybe podcasts, even though there's not a lot of interaction there between the podcasts. But between all these different resources that are available, the codex, for example, and the handbooks, you've managed to have this successful business with video, sort of like video manuals. I think there's a product out there, maybe user manuals. I don't want to confuse the two, but with these video-based tutorials and walking people through and explaining to people what WordPress is, whatever you're doing, you've got the right recipe going on, because despite all of that, you're still, from what I've observed, is it's a successful company.
Yeah, it has been. In fact, it's far exceeded my earliest goals for the site. I completely expected it to be a side project. 6 years is a long time to build relationships, and so attending WordCamps and meeting developers who said, hey, I need a great training resource for my clients, realizing how we could serve them, for example, through the creation of the WP101 plugin, which was kind of a sister product to the actual membership site on WP101.com. That plugin really helped us to serve developers in a much more effective way, and their customers, and extend that reach. Ultimately, that's what also has enabled us to reach out to GoDaddy and to serve their customers, and some of these exciting things that we're able to do now. I think all of that is the product of sincerely building relationships for the long haul, and I place a lot of emphasis on that. I believe personally and professionally that everything we do is really just an excuse to build relationships. So with that kind of goal in mind, it's not transactional. And I think that's what's helped WP101 to kind of weather the storms. And the other thing is that you mentioned it earlier, there are competing products, obviously. And there's actually been a really healthy kind of competition in the WordPress education space, because over the years since I created WP101, there's been other products. iThemes has had a great series for a long time, through the web developer training that they offer. Video user manuals you mentioned earlier, Troy Dean. In Australia, these Bob WP is another great example. Obviously, the Sidekick guys. So there are many of us now kind of solving this problem and working actively to help people learn how to use WordPress. And I think there's room for all of us to do it, because we all do it in slightly different ways, and we all are going to reach and serve a slightly different group or demographic, and that's perfectly fine. So there is really kind of a mutual respect. That I enjoy, some banter, that goes on between those of us that are really, deeply dedicated to WordPress education in this style. And I don't think you can get that anywhere else other than in the WordPress community. And it's been great.
Well, in typical WordPress community fashion, when I wrote about your partnership with GoDaddy and Media Temple, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you had written this big long piece at the end of the interview, pretty much thanking Bob, thanking Troy Dean, thanking all these people, saying go here, go there, in addition to me, look at all these other resources you have. So in typical WordPress community fashion, you pretty much said, hey, look, yeah, these are all competitors, but if I've got a client or something to where it makes sense, to where they get the best experience from that person, I'm going to recommend them. And it seems like all of the other people were vice versa. If they find a client that really wants your way of training people and explaining things, they'll send them over to you. So there's a lot of mutual relationships going on, and I think a lot of that is, A, just a mindset of the community itself, what we are and how we interact, but B, there's plenty of people, in this sea, there's plenty of customers that everybody can be happy with. And it seems to be, as WordPress grows, there's more and more need for this training environment.
There is, and that's to me, it's a really exciting time to be in WordPress education. I'm happy about the success we've had with WP101. I think we've developed some unique products in the plugin, also the licenses. Being able to license a white-labeled set of our videos for use on a site by an agency or a theme company. So there's some things that we've been able to do over the years, but I feel like we've really just scratched the surface of effectively, being able to educate people. And I think about this all the time. This is the thing that I'm obsessed with is how do we do this even better? Not necessarily. My first priority isn't to increasing the reach, although that's happening, but it's happening organically. I think my first concern is doing it better and more effectively. And are we really, helping the beginners to get up to speed as quickly as possible and really build, the type of site that they started out to build in the first place? And so that's something that I obsess about.
Now you talk about expanding reach. You're focusing right now on just being the best at it, doing it better. Have you reached a point where between your clients and your relationships that you've established over the years, obviously this partnership with GoDaddy and Media Temple is huge in terms of brand awareness and customers being aware of who WordPress WP101 is. Is this organic growth happening where you don't need to advertise, you don't need to establish relationships anymore? They're coming to you instead of you're going to them?
So kind of two questions there. In terms of advertising in the traditional sense, pay-per-click advertising and those things, thankfully I haven't had the need to do that the last couple of years. So in the first several years, I aggressively advertised in all kinds of different channels and placing banner ads on related websites and things like that to get eyeballs. So there was some of that early on just to get that early traction. But today, I don't really rely so much on those channels, and so I don't actively advertise in pay-per-click or strategic placed ads and those kind of things. So it's nice to not have to be consumed with yet another set of data that I look at every day.
And expense.
Yeah, and the expense, obviously. So that's really. I think we have reached a point where we have a little bit of momentum. I can't remember the last time I was at a WordCamp and introduced myself to someone who had not heard of WP101. So that's gratifying. Yeah. It's gratifying, and that's been, I think, again, that's a real testament to being authentic and genuine at every level and treating every relationship, as equally important. And primarily, jumping in the trenches and saying, hey, how can I help you as a developer, as an agency? What are the problems you're facing, and how can we solve it? That actually is how the conversation with GoDaddy came about. So the relationship that I had with Cody Landfield in Arizona, Cody actually reached out and said, hey, Shawn, I want you to meet Jeff King at GoDaddy, VP of the WordPress Managed Hosting product, and he's doing some exciting things, knows about WP101, wants to talk to you. So when we had the first conversation, we talked about some of the challenges they were facing in terms of onboarding new customers, specific to their demographic, who happened to line up with WP101 members very nicely, and that were largely they're beginners, brand new to web publishing, and that's perfectly fine. So there was a natural overlap there and a way to put the videos to work for GoDaddy customers directly within their dashboard, and so that's worked out really well. And so now tens of thousands of their customers are able to watch the WP101 videos directly in their dashboard. So I would love to see that across every host. And we have great relationships with a couple of other web hosting providers, and we've had conversations with them about these things. So while GoDaddy's the first to do that, and I'm really, really impressed with what they have done with that managed WordPress hosting platform, more importantly with their brand in the last, all the things that have been done with their brand, and I think they're in a strong position now to turn that around. So I'm excited about all that for those guys, and it made sense for us to partner together. At the end of the day, I want to help as many people as possible and help them get up to speed using WordPress.
Yeah, again, and congratulations on that deal. I think it's fantastic for both. It's a win-win situation for both you and GoDaddy and Media Temple's customers in terms of WordPress training. And me and Marcus have talked about on previous shows the GoDaddy's reputation ever since the Bob Parson era has left.
Right.
The things that they're doing to sort of clean up the damage. And I've spoken on the show numerous times that I really like what I see. I like the direction they're heading in. It's a lot different. You don't hear the new people up at the top killing elephants, and all that. They don't have almost half-naked woman encased front page for their website anymore. So
Right.
they're doing a lot of great things, and they're reestablishing themselves as a good brand to associate yourself with. They still have a ways to go, but hopefully within the next few weeks we're going to get Jeff King or another representative on from GoDaddy to actually talk about the process they've been going through to improve GoDaddy.
It's no small achievement for sure. And I was really impressed with the speed and also their killer one-click importer. They have a migration tool that you can import from your existing host, and it actually works, and it works really well. So I migrated a dozen sites for friends and family, small sites, and it went off without a hitch every single time. And then I was surprised at the increase in the speed. So they've clearly gotten some things right. Those address some specific issues that we've had issues with in the past using GoDaddy's shared hosting, and so they're definitely on the right path, I think.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of IT guys in the past at large enterprises, as I was working my way up through the ranks and all that. And when I first started encountering WordPress in a corporate environment, it's when I was the director of marketing for Entrepreneur Magazine. And we there had, through entrepreneur.com, wanted to set up a network of blogs, and they were running this weird Ectron system. But WordPress was it. And that's the funny thing is that the IT guys had the most resistance, I guess, to WordPress. And it's clear that whoever is in charge over there as far as, the whole WordPress scheme at GoDaddy, they're WordPress fans because that thing is built for WordPress. There's no mistake about it.
Yeah, totally agree. That's been my experience as well. So yeah, I'm excited about the partnership. It's thrilling to me to know that this has greatly increased the reach of these videos and the ability to help that many more people get up to speed with WordPress as quickly as possible. So yeah, it's exciting stuff.
So Shawn, with your work and what you do, and with your members only forum where people can ask you questions, based on customer feedback, what part of WordPress do you find people struggle with the most? This is a topic that's come up quite a few times within the past year or two on this notion, is WordPress really as easy as we advertise that it is? Your thoughts on that?
That is a phenomenally loaded question.
Well, unloaded. Shoot the gun.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I think it's custom post types.
And it's true that it's always going to be true that your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. As WordPress is increasingly becoming more flexible, the ability to add and create custom post types, the more confusing it can become for the end user, and especially when they go through a series of videos that don't cover that custom post type. And so I get a lot of questions in the forum that are something like, hey, I clicked on testimonials, and I got this experience, and I don't. Well, now I have to determine, is that a plugin? Is it a theme function? Where is this testimonials thing coming from, right? So there are some of those issues related to just the flexibility of the platform itself that really pose some challenges for educators. So I would say custom post types is a big one, and related to that, we get a lot of questions on things like permalinks. That is a confusing topic for a lot of folks. And then, believe it or not, categories and tags. I don't know why, but it really seems to trip up a lot of folks. And once I'm able to kind of communicate clearly, they quickly grab it. But the confusion, I think, comes with regard to custom menus, and a lot of times the questions I get are really it's really just about vernacular, right? About getting the right words in the right place. When they say categories, or I clicked on this category, they don't mean category in the WordPress sense. They mean the link in their menu at the top, in the navigation menu, and so it takes a little education to get them up to speed and making sure we're speaking the same language so that I can then answer the real question. And so that is incredibly challenging. I think down the road, the challenges that we're going to continue facing are, one, as talking about the REST API and some of the things that are coming down the road, there could be any number of interfaces, or even the WordPress backend itself being customized by a developer or an agency specifically for a customer. These pose some educational challenges, and we've somewhat addressed that in the WP101 plugin by enabling developers to, first of all, hide some of the videos that may not apply to their customers, so they can hide and kind of customize that list so that it's only applicable to them. But then they can also upload their own screencasts. So that's been widely received, and a lot of folks use that and even deploy the WP101 plugin programmatically when they're deploying staging sites. Some developers like Bill Erickson even requires his customers to log in and watch those tutorial videos while he's developing the site, so that when he gets to the point where he's ready to launch it, he knows that they've at least got the basics down. So the plugin has enabled us to kind of address some of that and provide a little bit of a platform for developers and agencies to customize that education, but we're still dealing with challenges of creating videos and making sure that those actually cover what they're seeing in the dashboard. And I'll be perfectly honest, this is an area where I think Sidekick and their walkthroughs is doing great work. And I know Ben and Bart, I've talked to them a bunch in the last 18 months. I think that product is going to go a long way. We had a deep conversation about kind of the strengths and weaknesses of walkthroughs versus video, and even Ben acknowledged there are some things that video is just better at. Some things when you need to jump out of the browser, for example, or out of the WordPress dashboard to demonstrate something or show something else on another site as an example, that's going to provide a better educational experience. So I kind of envision, as these things continue to mature, it probably is the best scenarios where you have a video that provides an overview, and then maybe you have some walkthroughs or personalized one-on-one training like Bob WP provides, to kind of take it from there and fill in the gaps. So it's an interesting thing to see some of these educational challenges, not to mention the challenges presented by WordPress potentially getting to a point where the updates are actually, pushed out automatically and transparently. So I have nightmares about that moment, but we're not quite there.
It's interesting you bring up the REST API, because as I learned more about it, I realized that we could, even Matt mentioned this in his State of the Word address, that we could get to a point where we have thousands potential. I mean that's a lot, but upwards of 1,000 different back-end experiences based on the particular client's need, and the REST API will make it easy for developers to create custom backends for what you need for the task at hand for the front end. So I've been wondering, well, what does this mean for you? At the very least, you've already got it covered with the default out of the box WordPress experience, but I'm wondering if there's a backend interface which becomes popular with a lot of people. Would you consider doing a video walkthrough of that particular interface?
Yeah, I think that's really going to be, again, we talked about this earlier, one of the differentiators is those conversations and being people-driven in the decisions for what content I'm going to continue to create in the future. Absolutely, if there's a particular tool that becomes really popular, is widely accepted, and there's need for training, I would love to, participate and create a series of videos for that. This is the nature of the the video series we did in collaboration with Yoast for WordPress SEO plugin, and we're going to do with Gravity Forms and some of the others that are coming up. And there's a kind of need for this collaboration through not just with plugins, also with themes, and I've worked closely with Woo Themes and other theme companies over the years. So there are places where I think custom videos make sense, and where we would be happy to provide that kind of training, provided there's enough demand for that. Equally challenging, I think, is thinking about other tools like Desk PM, that enables you to publish to your WordPress-powered blog without ever even seeing the back end. So, there are a number of those tools I think that we're going to see kind of make a resurgence, right? Because we saw some of them early on that really didn't do it very well.
Yeah, and the whole thing with XML RPC and that
right.
made things difficult, but this whole REST API is going to create a entire renaissance of experiences in terms of WordPress, and just the thought of 1,000 different back-end experiences to interact with WordPress is mind-boggling.
Yeah. So I think to kind of answer your question a little more directly, my primary goal as an educator is to try to answer the why, and not necessarily limit my answer to just the what. You can quickly get lost if all you're hearing is someone tell you, okay, then you click here, and then you go here, and you enter the title, and then and this to me is one of the limitations of walkthroughs. If you're not careful to also provide the why this is important, what does it look like on the front end when you do these things that I'm walking you through on the back end. So that's why I think this is very fluid and very changing, and as long as the education is answering the why this is important, what's the difference in posts and pages? Why would you want to use posts? Why is a blog important? Some of those kinds of questions, then we can actually change the what or the how you do this. Those are the steps to accomplish that goal. But I think this is the challenge of every educator, really, is how to get that end goal in mind and then help them get from point A to point B. And that is going to become increasingly challenging with some of these things we're talking about. But it's also incredibly exciting for me. I know it's exciting for Ben and Bart when they talk about what they're doing with regard to Sidekick. We're all kind of facing some of the same challenges and excited about the opportunities that represents.
Excellent. Well said. Marcus, any other questions you want to ask Shawn before we let him go?
How do you manage your editorial calendar and your time?
Well, that's another really interesting question. There is a quote that Corey Miller is really fond of, and I know you guys have heard it, so I'll probably just butcher it here. But it's basically the power of a team. So if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And until now, WP101 has been largely a one-man operation. Now I have developers that we've contracted, brought in to do specific work. Mark Jakewith developed the WP101 plugin for me and some of that. But in terms of the day-to-day, it still is. It's me. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm the one answering the emails. I'm the one in the Q&A forum answering those questions, and a lot of those border on mini tutorials for each person, providing that personalized level of support. Honestly, right now, we have 22,000 members since we launched, but all 22,000 are obviously not in the forum every day and answering, posting questions. At that point, we would have serious, issues of scale. But right now, it's completely manageable. I'm able to do it in a comfortable way, and stay on top of it every single day. It's 7 days a week. There is no 4-hour work week, but it's a lot of fun. It's immensely rewarding for me right now. And I think this is one of the reasons why this competition is more than welcome, because there's only so much each one of us can do. And so I think in terms of managing time, it's really pretty manageable. It's a lot of fun for me. So I get up in the morning excited about helping folks get their site built and learn how to use WordPress to accomplish their goals. That's fun for me. And it's not unlike the same charge or rush that I got as a freelance designer. So that really hasn't changed. And I think it informs how I spend my day. Now, the biggest challenge comes when it's time to re-record all the videos. Yeah. So we're about to do that again with version 4.1, obviously. So as soon as it hits alpha, that's when I start going through our scripts, making sure what changes need to happen and where, start rewriting. And it really takes a solid 2 to 4 weeks every time that cycle comes through. So my wife takes the kids out to her parents' house for a few days, and I lock the door and disappear in my cave. And when I come out on the other side, we have 20 new videos ready for our members. So yeah, it can be. That's the most challenging times.
I mean, have you ever seen? I mean, WordPress is doing about 3 major releases a year. At least that's the goal.
Right. Right.
I mean, it seems like. Marcus and I, we were just talking about 4.0, and next thing you know, a few weeks later, oh, here's beta 1 of 4.1. Do you ever see news of, well, here comes another beta, and you just go, you just sort of sigh, and you just sort of, you like try and not get into the room and not record things? Or do you just go in there and do it? How do you motivate yourself to go through those 20 videos every time?
Yeah, part of it I think is that, like you guys, I mean, I'm a WordPress junkie like the next guy, so I actually get excited about the new things. I'm excited to see 2015 come in and to play around with some of those things. So I get amped up about it. Whenever I see the first beta released, I've got my playground site on my local machine that I'm playing around with those bleeding edge nightlies. I'm monitoring the track and seeing these conversations that happen, and now the Slack chats, to make sure that I stay on top of what's happening, what's coming, and what's going to be, affecting the production of these videos for the next cycle. But honestly, it is a lot of fun. I still do really get a kick out of the production. Now, what does cause me some pause for thought is when we start talking about a 4 to 6 releases a year, that type of a cycle, that could kind of push the limits of what I'm able to do. At that point, I'm sure we'll talk about some different systems, and ultimately, if we had to, I'm sure we could move to a quarterly release cycle, or trimester, once every 3 months, 4 months, we release a new set of videos. But for now, You know, it's a lot of fun. I get a rush out of doing it. So no, I don't have the hang my head moment. I get excited like everybody else, like every other WordPress junkie out there, to see the new releases.
And I think part of the motivation there for you as well is that a lot of your customers of WP101 probably find out and learn about these new features specifically through your videos, the way you explain them and show them. And I think that gives you a bit of pride in that sense of, well, this is your responsibility. You owe it to your customers to show them these new things and how they can take advantage of them and how they can use them to make their site better.
You bet. And just like you guys and, you know, anyone else who writes about WordPress, we all rush to be the first to hit that button that says what's new in this new release. You know, so it's important that I get that information out to our members. Obviously through our email newsletter we do that, and then we tag all the new videos in each new release so that members can come back and take a look at what's new and make sure they're just watching the videos that affect them. So yeah, there are some challenges to delivering it in that way, but ultimately, you know, this is why I do what I do, and I enjoy, you know, helping people build the site that they need to build, that they want to build, to be able to create that kind of life that they want. So that's what I get a rush out of, and it's why I do this over and over again.
Excellent. Marcus, any more questions?
Yeah, well, is there a blooper reel available of some of your videos?
Blooper. Yeah, that would be great.
The only blooper reel I think you need is to go back and look at the first set of videos I created with WordPress 2.7. That would be plenty.
There's the shot, Jeff. Come on.
Yeah, no, the real stuff. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, no, that stuff gets deleted, obviously, in post. No, there is no blooper reel. You've given me an idea, though. I'll have to figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, forget it. They don't need to know custom post types for this revision. Forget it. We're not doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do it in the forums.
Or else you're doing the video, the tutorial, you click on something, you get the right screen of death. That would be good for the blooper reel.
That could become a really popular topic. That's one we get pretty often, actually. So yeah.
Awesome. So Shawn, I want to thank you very much for spending some of your time here on the show tonight. I think it's what you do very well, and I just want to personally thank you for, you know, I think in a way the various WordPress coaches, the trainers, what you do, what Bob WP does, and all of the others are sort of like the front line of WordPress. I mean, without you folks teaching people how to use WordPress, I think we're in a little bit of a worse state in terms of WordPress users knowing what they're doing versus having you guys around. So I just want to say thank you for helping to sort of raise the tide for everybody that wants to take advantage of your tutorials to learn about WordPress and to use it better. And just you're doing a great job, and just keep it up, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate that very much. Thanks for those kind words.
So where can we, obviously WP101.com, that's your website. Anywhere else we can keep tabs on you, and any announcements you have, any future announcements?
Well, I blog at ShawnHesketh.com, so you can find some of my content there about how I create screencasts. Some of the behind-the-scenes stuff gets pushed out there. Of course, on Twitter at LeftLane, and then obviously on Twitter at WP101 is where you can find the news related to that. We also have the WP101 plugin, which is on a separate site, so that gets confusing for some folks. But WP101plugin.com is the sister product. So that's the best place to find those. Regarding what's coming in the future, 4.1 videos are next up, and I'll be diving into that. We've also begun already scripting the series that we're going to do for Jetpack, which is going to be really ambitious.
Oh boy, yeah.
And I'm sure not without controversy. So
yeah, that'll only take about 600 videos.
Exactly, and more all the time. So we'll be tackling that.
Room chat myself.
That's great.
Looking forward to that, and I also want to point out that you do have some free videos available for viewing, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. With the first half a dozen videos or so, and those are also available to embed. So we have developers and designers who go ahead and embed our, what is WordPress video, even in proposals and things like that. They provide to their customers to give some of that preliminary information. So yeah, those first videos are completely free.
And those are also available on WP101.com, right?
That's right. Yep.
Awesome. So, Shawn, thanks a lot. Oh, well, before I let you go, any WordPress events that you're going to be at in the next few months?
We typically make all of our all the Texas WordCamps we try to make. The next big event on the calendar is Pressnomics. I'll be there again. Been there all 3 years, so this is, or will be, this being the third. So looking forward to that. It's going to be a great time to reconnect with a lot of folks and new friends as well.
I will be there, and I will meet you for the first time. So looking forward to that.
Sounds great, man. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. So keep up the good work, and all the best to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. So that was founder of WP101, Shawn Hesketh, and he's doing a great job over there with his videos. And any takeaways from the interview, Marcus?
Well, choose wisely when it comes to determining a membership platform for your site if you decide to go that way. And the takeaway also is that these are not just set it and forget it videos. Shawn is updating these as WordPress gets updated so that you're assured that this is always fresh content no matter what. So that's what I took away from this as far as new information. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, choose wisely what's going to power your membership platform. And I have some experience in using Camtasia. I've created a couple of screencasts and walkthroughs myself, and it's not easy, especially trying to get it right on the first go. So mad respect and props to Shawn for what he does over there with the videos, because most of them, they're all, it looks like he's a pro. It looks like they're easy for him to do, but obviously there's a lot of time and effort and work that goes on behind the scenes. So kudos to him, and I think it's just awesome that in the realm of all the free resources available, he's been able to carve out a nice little business for himself, providing this type of video training for users via the white label videos and through establishing big-time relationships / partnerships with web hosting companies, which I think is just fantastic.
Yeah, it helps everybody. It helps to grow the community, and you couldn't ask for anything better.
Excelente. So why don't you let's wrap up the show here with your picks of the week.
All right, these plugin picks of the week start off with Bulk Deactivate. This is a pretty unique plugin, Jeff, in which it allows you to group together groups of plugins, kind of put these plugins into one bag, these plugins into one bag, and you get to identify what those boxes or bags happen to be. And then you can just shut off an entire group of plugins with one click. So that if you want to do A/B testing or if you're having speed problems or things like that, you can shut down an entire group of plugins all at the same time, which is really good for troubleshooting.
Yeah, because typically what you have to do is there's already a couple of different groups of plugins available, recently inactive, and sometimes it can be a real drag going up and down and switching between those different groups to reactivate and deactivate plugins. So I think what this does, it makes it a lot more efficient.
Very efficient, yep. And speaking of efficient, this next plugin is called JM Twitter Cards. It helps to add Twitter card support to your site so that when your site posts are shared on Twitter, it also displays the Twitter card. Now, this is not the first Twitter card plugin out there, but this is the first one I've seen that actually supports all 7 of the different Twitter card formats, and that includes video, that includes different image sizes and shares and photos and things. It adds all this new metadata capability right within your post editor and grants you full control on a per post basis whether you want to include the Twitter card options or not. And it lets you vary what kind of Twitter card. So that's pretty cool. It's called JM Twitter Cards.
I don't want to get into it now, but what the heck's a Twitter card?
Well, it almost looks like when you see a very slickly formatted post in Twitter that almost sometimes is like a featured or a promoted tweet.
Oh, okay.
Basically, if someone goes to the site and clicks on share, it allows you to predetermine what the description is, what the title is, and the image that goes along with it as far as that link.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look into that.
If you have that metadata available on that page, that Twitter meta, then Twitter will read that link when someone just pastes in the link also. So it's really nice. It's a great way to do it. It kind of just talks to Twitter with WordPress and lets them display it in the way that you set it up, not just the end user.
Oh, okay.
All right. Next one is a great plugin that I'm implementing on one of my new news sites. This is like the longest plugin name almost in history. It's called Google News Editor's Pix Feed Generator. I'll say it again. Google News Editor's Pix Feed Generator.
Just because you got it right this second.
Yeah. It helps you optimize your posts for inclusion in Google News. So what it does is it creates 2 different unique Google News RSS feeds. So these are new RSS feeds coming out of your WordPress site that are exclusively for Google News. And they work on both the home page and for category specific. Actually suggest into Google News, you actually request inclusion so that you can be included in Google News. So you can create these kind of secondary feeds. So Jeff, for you, it would be like WordPress News, and then the homepage would have its own feed of what's happening at the tavern, because I'm sure the people in Google News are going to want to know about the podcast and all that. So this helps them do all of that. So remember, though, you have to have your website included within Google News for this plugin to work. Otherwise, it doesn't work at all. But once you install the plugin, it guides you through all of those steps. So it's called, once again, Google News Editor's Pix Feed Generator.
Come on, say it 5 times real fast right now.
No, just once.
Okay.
If you're interested in getting your content included in Google News, this is an excellent way in which to do it.
Excellent. So that's your plugin picks of the week for episode 171. And just a note that next week, Marcus and I will be doing a show. We're going to get you caught up on all the news of the week. And it will be our Giving Thanks edition of WordPress Weekly. So, Marcus, your homework is to create a short list. I don't know, 5, 6 items, something like that. I'll also create a list of things that I am thankful for as it relates to WordPress. And I also want to have our listeners out there send us 1 or 2 things that you are thankful for as it relates to WordPress, and we'll read them on the air. So it would be pretty cool just to have we can all get together, sing Kumbaya, and say what we're thankful for as it relates to WordPress. So that's what we'll be doing next Wednesday evening. And then
I'll bring pie.
Day after that, we'll be eating turkey. At least I will. Do you eat turkey?
I do.
All right, so we'll be eating turkey. Too bad we don't have a turkey sound effect. That'd be pretty neat. So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of WordPress Weekly. You can find show notes on WPTavern.com. That's where you can find show notes for all previous episodes. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jeffro. That's JEFFR0. And I just recently went past 25,000 tweets. Can you believe that? That's a whole lot of self-promotion. So, yeah. So Marcus, where can we find you at?
You can find me at my website, marcuscouch.com, and also on Twitter at marcuscouch.
Excellente. So until we meet again next Wednesday evening, everybody out there have a safe and enjoyable weekend.